So I want to introduce Ofe. He's a wonderful, creative, courageous, uh, and caring future shaper. And Ofe has a very deep and rich past. He's Ufe's been a member of parliament in Denmark. He's been Minister of Culture. He's written several books. He's a journalist. He's been involved in so many activist political issues. He's helped develop political parties there in Denmark as well. And he's also a kind and good friend. And he's a partner with Jens Pedersen, who's a very creative person as well. And they publish the books together. So anyway, this is our friend Ofe, and I want everybody to meet you because you've done so much, and we've had such a wonderful relationship over the years. I remember that's where we first started connecting together was
Yeah, exactly.
the cohorts sent to set the outpost up in San Francisco, and we taught some of your students, and they worked with
You
us
did.
at our offices there in San Francisco. And one of the things I really enjoyed about the whole process is that when you're teaching and sharing your knowledge, some wisdom, when you're doing that, you're also picking up much more from the students. I learned
Yeah.
so much from the students and the teachers that came accompanied some of them. One of the words that they taught me was Näringsliv, which is the Swedish
Yeah,
word
yeah, yeah,
for
yeah,
business, and I love that. I still use. I referred to it in our book on future shaping. The Näringsliv means basically nourishment for life to life, nourishment to life. And if business was framed that way, if our reason for being in business is to nourish life, what a difference that would make. That
yeah,
simple term. Would you agree?
yeah, yeah, totally. And back to what we talked about before, this extended leadership responsibility, not only inside the organization but also outside the organization, that you really understand that your business is, yeah, of course, it should be a sustainable economic s- balance, of course, but actually, it's about life and creation and supporting your local community and create workplaces for people and families to live of, etc., etc. So the word næringsliv, both in Swedish and Danish, means the same. And The person who really was able to frame it for an international audience and really got the word out there was Leif Edvinsson, a Swedish business man, and also a good friend and a former colleague. But he became the face and the voice for getting that frame and understanding about what business is actually about. It's to nurture life,
Yes.
and I love it. I love it.
I
Yeah,
think it's a brief so critical today. There's also, I was thinking about your four competencies that underlie everything:
Yeah,
meaning, change, relationships, and actions. Uh, we also thinking along those kind of four quadrant ways, bring it to a different level in terms of yours is very foundational and so forth. We were asked by some of our leaders, what are the competencies that we need to be teaching our children and our future leaders today? And we put it in our book, and we said basically our four build on what you've said is creativity is
mhm,
absolutely key. The only way we're going to get through all this is through our imagination, our reimagining, the creativity that comes with that. So we need to be instead of destroying creativity in our schools, we need to be encouraging creativity in our schools and teaching it in different ways that open that up. The second way is storytelling.
mhm,
We have data all over the place, but we have
mhm.
very few stories that hold it. We need a reimagined story for the future that people can understand and express. And we've teach some of our companies and leaders storytelling techniques. The other is zoom out and zoom in. The
Mm.
ability to take in the larger whole network of things, the entire system, but then also being able to dive down into the deepness of it to get to the specificities that allow you to take it in. And that ability to zoom out and zoom in, this is what Steve Jobs talked about as the number one sign of intelligence, is those that can zoom out and zoom in. And the final one we talk about in our four quadrants is potential, bringing out the full potential of the human, who we are
Mm.
as people, and how do we bring that out. And some
Mm.
of the foundational things about meaning, change, relationships, and actions are part of that expression of how do you bring out that full potential. And that's what
Mm.
we have to be teaching in our schools, I believe, and in our businesses. And some of our leaders are starting to do some of that right now.
No, agree. And I know that you, Drew, would like to jump in, but before you do that, just two things. Then one is that for me, education is not only the purpose of education is not only professional development, that you know something about a topic or whatever. It's also personal development. So the outer and the inner development for me is crucial to understand. And how do you create a learning environment where personal and professional development goes hand in hand? It's a very delicate issue, and also will demand new ways of teaching and new teachers. So from this, I always have this picture in my head that uh, if you have to, the best place to be for you as a person is that there's a connection between what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what you're doing.
Mhm.
So head, heart, and hand, and all education should, in a way, build on that principles that you have to be challenged your intellectual capacity, but you also have to be challenged your emotional capacity, and you have to be challenging your action capacity. Yeah, and so that I just wanted to say that, and then secondly, your reflection about zooming out, zooming in. I
Mhm.
have another way to describe it because I'm just a pop kid, so to speak. Because I always say that it's like the Terminator perspective. And what do I mean with that? If you have seen Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, when I think it was the second film about that story, Terminator story, he was beamed down to Earth. Everyone who has seen that scene will recognize it, or otherwise you have to check it out. He's beamed down in front of a pub where a lot of rednecks are drinking a lot of beers, and he's completely naked. And as a viewer, you have this feeling, whoa, something dangerous is going to happen. And then he rises up and goes towards this pub and the beer stube or whatever you would call it, walks in through the door, and then you see this smoky room, and people are standing on the bar and drinking heavily, and there's some people doing what they're doing in the corners, whatever. And then you see he's scanning the whole room. All the scanning you can see through his eyes. He's scanning everything, all the sides, all the elements, all the stuff, and you have as a viewer this feeling, fuck, he's gonna kill somebody. And then the next cut is that he walks out from the bar with a pair of jeans that fits him. So he was able to completely scan the bar, and then whoa, zoom in and find the genes that fitted him. So now he could start his action. Anyway, a small fun story. I know it.
I love that. I love your reference to Terminator 2. I think
Maybe
that's
you can find a picture of it and put it in.
I will
Yeah.
definitely superimpose Terminator 2 into this. I think one of the things I love when we're talking about education too is I'm a former school teacher. I used to teach art from
Yeah, yeah,
kindergarten through high school. And yeah, I completely agree. It's not just the head and it's not just the heart. It's or the hand. It's all three. It all has to be integrated. And
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and when I reflect back on being a teacher, you know, one of the things that was such a gift was when they could translate a piece of information into meaning personally and how they actually
yeah,
applied that. And I might be teaching them how to draw the human figure in a certain way, but how they interpret that and put themselves into that was beautiful. And I'm like, wow, okay, now I'm just learning a technique. And so there's
yeah,
this
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
this
yeah.
cross, and so what brings that up for me is you know, Chaos Pilot. You know, hearing the stories about Chaos Pilot, it's just brilliant. And I would like to hear a little more about the creativity and design in your approach to leadership development.
So please reframe that question. What do you mean?
How the importance of creativity and design was applied
Yeah,
in leadership development with Chaos Pilot.
yeah, 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 yeah. Actually, since I left, I was a principal for the school and for the program for 15 years before I entered politics. And that's maybe also important for the viewer to know that I did a lot of stuff before I entered mainstream politics and becoming a member of the Danish Parliament and Minister for Culture, and since also party leader for the Green Party in Denmark called the Alternative. All these names you can find on the website, no problem. So in a way, I know how the old system functions, and but I also know how the new system are able to function. So I've had, in a way, a split reality to frame it like that. So when you talk about how to take creativity into the boardroom or take creativity into CEOs or CEO level or even middle managers, whatever. Um, uh, I use the same. I use the same take as I used for the students. There's no difference. I have for 40 years used these very basic principles, and it works in kindergarten and it works in the boardroom. There's no difference. Of course, the sophistication can be different. Actually, I think young kids and young adults, they're much more open-minded than the old guys. Actually, I think the old guys are many times quite boring in their mindset, and you have to get them to laugh. God damn it! You have to make them feel what are their body telling them. When are they excited? When are they not? And back to something I talked about before about the life force. I'm always, when I'm walking into a space, it, it could be the kindergarten, or it could be the Danish Parliament, or it could be a top level board for a big private corporation. I'm also always asking, is the life force present here?
Yes.
Can you feel the life force, or can you not feel the life force? Is the life force present in people's eyes? Uh, are the and depending, maybe it is, then it's fine. If not, what kind of structures are not allowing the life force to be present? What is what is it in the DNA of the organizational culture that doesn't allow the life force to be present? What kind of power structures are created that doesn't allow the life force to be present, etc. And some of these questions can sound extremely banal, and it is extremely banal, but at the same time extremely important. So it's not difficult to feel is the life force present or not. And you could say the same thing, say in this conversation, is there enough life force in what we're talking about is or not? Is this boring or is it lively? Is this have we invited curiosity into our discussion or not? Do we feel something or don't we feel something? Are we just zombies or are we human beings, etc.? So for me, I use exactly the same skills, tools, and methods if I'm working with a group of teenagers or if I'm working with a group of board members. It's
I
the same.
I totally agree with what you're saying. We had a French company that bought five companies, and they had a CEO to be the super CEO, and all five of the CEOs of these uh, companies we brought all together, and the super CEO who was helping to pull all of them together into a more cohesive unit to work together. It's a very large French company, but anyway, he said, I can't get them to even look at each other. They've been competitors and they won't even talk to each other in the same room. And I said, Ah, I know what we need to do. We have to play. We have to
Yeah,
play together. The only way
yeah,
we're going to break through this silliness is to go back to our childhood and play together. And so we orchestrated several different games and puzzles they had to figure out and some other things. They started laughing, and by after the first day and a few drinks that night,
yeah,
the next day they were all chums and buddies again because they
yeah.
learned how to be. They tapped into that part of us that's the child that is alive with curiosity and wants to play and try new things and everything else. Once they did that, they could break through all that silly ego stuff.
Exactly.
Those
No,
kids,
exactly. Exactly, and then sometimes I use this picture that if you look at a human as an instrument, this beautiful instrument have maybe 1,000 strings to play on, but normally we only play on maybe four, five, six strings.
yeah.
There's so much in each of us that can be so much more playful and meaningful. So I totally agree. Um, just one further comment about some of these questions you can ask, which sounds extremely banal. The first example was this: is the life force present right now? Another question which I have started to use when I do leadership training, or yeah, let's just call it leadership training. I asked the participants, the road you are walking down at right now, does this road really have the right heartbeat?
Mhm.
And again, it's a very simple question, and people spontaneous are able to respond on it. Is the heartbeat stressful, or is there no heartbeat, or so each of us has to ask that question. The road I'm walking down at, does it has the right heartbeat?
Yes.
Question question mark.
Yeah.
And if not, can you change it, or can you do something that gets it back or not? Or do you need to get out of the dead end and find another road to walk down at?
Well, there's a poet, David White, that in one of his poems, he said, anything or anyone who does not bring you alive is too small for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's a nice quote. That's a
Any,
nice quote.
anything
Yeah,
or anyone who does not bring you alive is too small for you. We have to ask ourselves, does it bring us alive? And
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Or
yeah,
can we put
those,
life into it? Maybe it's us that we can put more life into it as well. So it's a two-way thing, right? Because
Completely. Yeah.
you know,
yeah,
No, no, I totally agree, Drew. Because that's another thing is that a lot of people is standing on the sideline and don't want to get involved. So each of us has a responsibility to be part of life and support life wherever we are on the workplace or in our local communities or in the discussions between friends. We have to invest ourselves into it. So I totally agree.
yeah. It's like, and that brings me to your book here.
Yeah,
You have a few pictures in here of coming to our place, Blue Haven, here on the coast.
yeah,
And one of the things I love about how you look at things is you're more than willing to look at yourself. And a lot of people don't look at themselves and they don't look at what their challenge is. And we all have challenges. We all have to go
yeah,
through change.
yeah,
And I remember when you came here, you had just come from a rather difficult uh, thing coming up in the politics there in
yeah,
Denmark.
yeah.
And you were going, I don't know whether I should be in this world of politics or not, or whatever else. Can you describe describe a little bit of your experience when you came here and what was?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But I think I want just to set the scene. What happened just before we arrived to your place, Dan and Meredith. What happened in Denmark? We are back in December 2012, and I've been a minister for culture for a period, 1.5 years or so, and ended up with that I was accused of all kinds of stuff from the opposition. And I was quite new to top level politics, and I was not. I I really didn't understand where did that uh, hatred came from, and where did that energy come from, and it was a huge shitstorm. I was suddenly dropped into, and I had to really to navigate both for my political life, but also for my personal life, because my husband Jens was suddenly on the front page of the Boulevard Press and all that kind of stuff, and it was really so dirty political business, as you know how political business can be. And then I decided that my love relationship to Jens was more important than my political career. So I just from one day to the other said, "Fuck you guys! I don't want to stay in my position." And then, of course, the whole media, national media scene changed position in a split second, saying, "No, but that was not the meaning. It was not that serious criticism, etc." But that was a very important decision for me to take to figure out what was most important for me. Was it my relationship to Jens, or was it my career power ego to be a top politician in the Danish parliament? And so I was very happy for my decision, but I was also at the same time completely unsure what should the next step be for me. Should I leave the parliament or not? And then we decided to take 1 month off over the Christmas of 2012 and into the beginning of 2013. And it was at that time we came to your house then, and I don't think that you really understood how vulnerable we were, both Jens and me. It was so we were so. Yeah, all the emotion was on the outside our clothes, as we say in Danish. So it was for us. It was first of all such a beautiful place to visit. Everyone should have that privilege to experience that one day. Blue Heaven is one of the most beautiful spots on the planet Earth. Up the west coast, north from San Francisco, and you have the cliffs and you have the Pacific Ocean, the waves rolling in, and it's a very, very, the energy is very special, I would say, at your place, and that's even somebody would describe it as it's a special spiritual energy. Other would maybe describe it as a very special nature. But for me, it's the same. Anyway, one day we had to do kind of a ritual. It was in the evening, and it was completely dark outside your house, and we went to the cliffs. And then we had to send up our egos, let our egos go, let go of our egos. And we had to, each of us, to send up, I don't know the English word, but a paper lamp. I don't if that's the correct word. These Chinese paper lamps
Yeah.
with candlelights in, and of course the scenery was extremely beautiful. You could see the stars and you could hear the waves, and there we were on the edge of the cliff, you and Meredith and Jens and me, and each of you were sending up your lamps, and you saw in the air and then leave the coast and out over the ocean. And then it was my time to let my ego go. And then I was lighting my candlelight, and the paper lamp went up and maybe 100 meters up, and then it started to drift over the from the over the cliff and over into the ocean. And then suddenly the yeah, it started to burn. So the candle started. I thought something went wrong, and the paper lamp started to burn. And then the structure, the ring at the bottom of the lamp, of course, had to fall down. And what happened was that this metallic ring from 200 meters up, or how far it was up, came all the way down and landed just in front of my feet. And I still remember everyone of us started to laugh because, okay, you thought you were able to let your ego go. No, no, the ego is not finished with you, guy. And then wham, the metallic ring came down to me again. And then on a symbolic level, I said, okay, maybe I'm not finished in national politics. And then I decided when we came home to Denmark, saying, no, guys, I'm not leaving you. I want to go just down on the floor and look my critics directly in the eyes and see what happened. And from there, half a year later, I created the new Green Party in Denmark called the Alternative, and we were running for the next election in 2015 and came in with nine members of parliament. So from the cliff of your house, in front of your house, and all the way 3 years later, a new party was born in Denmark. So that's what can happen if you are visiting Blue Heaven. Stuff can happen, and suddenly you can change the political agenda on the other side of the planet. That's quite good.
Beautiful story.
It's
I
a,
love
it's
that
an
story.
amazing story. Yes, that was a wonderful time we had with you and Jens, and
Yeah,
but it's true. It's when we, ritual play, all that is part of our human nature. It's part of who we are, and we learn how to adjust by doing those things, by getting out there and lighting a candle and let it go up and find out what we're saying to ourselves. I think this whole active playing and doing things is the way we get out of this. We don't get out of this challenge by just talking about it. We get out by doing something. It's like your principle of relationships and meaning, but also action. Uh,
yeah,
it
yeah,
it has to come into an actionable place. We have to do something.
yeah.
Yeah.
This reminds me of a conversation I had with a artist from Argentina on a program I was part of. I was teaching at a program in Salzburg. It's called Salzburg Global. That's the program, and it's a wonderful program. People should check it out. And that specific program, there's some sub programs. That specific programs was a program for artists and people in the culture sector, young artists and young people from the culture sector. And I was down there to doing some teaching, doing some training of them. And one morning at the breakfast, I had a really interesting discussion with a female artist from Argentina, and she told me about her art project, and it had started actually as a very personal research project about where she asked her closest friend about the same question, saying, when do you really feel most human? In what context do you feel most human and most you? That was the question she asked her
Mhm.
friends. And then she got surprised that the same three answers came up again and again. And then she thought, okay, maybe I should ask more people about it, because maybe I'm just asking in the same small echo chamber, and then the same answers will come up. And then she asked the same question. I think it was around 2,000 people. And these people came from all walks of life. It was people, academics, it was carpenters, it was teachers, it was nurses, it was scientists, it was people who had a job, people who didn't have a job, it was people in the city and in the countryside. It was men and women, it was young and old, etc. And then what happened was super interesting. The same three answers. Of course, there was a lot of different answers, but there was three answers that came up again and again. And maybe the people viewing this conversation, yeah, just could just for just a second think about in what circumstances do you really feel most yourself and in contact with yourself, most human? In what environments, in what situation do you really feel you?
Mhm.
Just reflect about it in 2 seconds, and then I will come up with what was actually the conclusion, because uh, the first answer was, I feel, which most people connected to, was I feel most me when I'm out in nature.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, um, that's that's really where I can feel myself, and yeah, I feel me. The second answer was I feel me when I do some creative stuff. Uh, when I'm painting or making music or singing or drawing and doing some creative stuff, artistic stuff.
Mhm.
That's where I can feel myself. Uh, that's where I'm most me. That's where I'm most human. And the last answer was I feel most human when I help somebody else, when I do something in a social context or are supporting somebody else, when I connect to somebody else. So these three answers came up: nature, creativity, and to be a social, aware, responsible person helping somebody else. And I, when I heard the story, I had this question mark in my head. Why is our societies not organized around that three principles? That we are connected to nature, that we're all creative, and we all help each other.
Yes.
That's so simple and so true. And so, yeah.
So that was one of my last questions for you is what advice would you have for the future and future shapers, people who want to play a role in helping to shape a better world for ourselves as we go through this transitioning time? Perhaps nature, creativity, and being of service to others and helping others is part of that advice to the
Yeah,
future.
exactly.
Would you say?
That would, yeah, that would for sure be my advice. And then, and again, it's all connected, of course, but how can you create space for the life force in the individual and in the group and in the community? And so, and sometimes I get the answer question from journalists: what is the solution to what is happening right now? And of course, you could answer that question on a very practical and detailed level and go into geopolitics and climate change and stuff like that. But to uh, frame it very simple and direct is that the answer to anything is nature and community.
Mhm.
Uh, we have to give space to nature, and we have to create really strong, living, diverse communities that are able to help each other when the shit hits the fan, so to
Yes,
speak.
yes. I think that's wonderful advice. With that as an ending, I think it's time perhaps we wrap up. This has been
Yeah, we've been talking for a long time. You have to edit this. And
but this has been wonderful, and it's taken it. What I love about it is it has taken us down a somewhat different path, and yet it's connected to what we've had with other leaders we've talked with, and there's connections between you. But you bring it into a different field, and I think this is really an important aspect of what you've offered here with understanding the human aspect of this in a deeper way, and the creativity and the connections that we have, and making that part of this world. And that's what you've done your entire life with
yeah,
Chaos Pilot and politics and so forth.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really refreshing to hear a leader talk about how bringing, having process and creativity to bring soulfulness to things
mm,
like politics, to education. That's one of my takeaways from this wonderful conversation is bringing a soulfulness to the experience. And because it's absolutely needed. It can't be completely cerebral. So,
yeah.
yeah, I just thank you so much, Uwe.
No, but I'm so happy about our conversation, and yeah, and I miss that I could go on a flight just coming and staying out with you guys.
Oh, please, whenever you.
Yeah, I think we have to accept that I'll not get allowed in before Trump is out of the White House. I've been way too outspoken about what I think about him and his government on the social media, so won't even try to take that risk. But maybe we can meet up in in Toronto or
Yeah.
Montreal.
Or we were at the time. It was delightful getting to see you again and
Yeah.
share your wisdom. It was beautiful. I couldn't have asked for anything more. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
We are calling out to all you future shapers out there, folks and brands creating more value and enriching life. Are you or do you know an inspiring leader or a brand building a more regenerative future? We want to hear from you. At Beam, we are a design and strategy agency working with all levels of leadership and businesses, co-creating futures that's more rewarding for people, businesses, and our planet. Whether you are interested in being featured in our media or ready to take your enterprise into a new era, please visit us at beaminc.com. We would love to connect with you and explore shaping the future together.